Welcome back to another episode of Market Monday. This is going to be one of the bigger episodes throughout the year because it was our first real market explosion. So I want to make this of note. This is being recorded October 13th, right after the first mini content dump of the season where we received 3 new icons, all at 87 overall, so plus 1 of all the icons that we had. We also received new captains as well as rookies and heroes. So a complete half content drop that we got from launch, which was huge. And in the last week, we've actually gotten the new Faceoff event too, but that dropped on Tuesday, not Friday. So it heavily impacted the market, changed everything. We got a new Connor McDavid. So the captain Connor McDavid came out. There's a lot to get into, and it is far different than what it was last week. So let's look into it. All right, so first up, when it comes to the icons, last week there was a total of 76 on the market. This week, exact same thing. There's actually 76 on the market as we speak, but you can also notice that there is some new 87 overalls with the new 87 overall Eric Lindros. We've also got Al MacKinnon as well as Martin Brodeur, but Eric Lindros is the big fish because his card is just insane for the current time of the game. So like I mentioned, with the new content drop, it actually requires an 86 overall icon to be traded in to make McKinnon or Lindros or Brodeur. And that has doubled the price of these. Just from my base standpoint, you could have gotten Joe Thornton's for 50,000 coins last week. All of the other ones were a little bit higher, like Chelios and Lundqvist, as well as Pronger. But now every single icon is up to 100,000 coins per. And that is simply because you need to trade one of these in to actually make the new Eric Lindros card. So a massive double jump in price when you just consider the 86 icons in general. Thornton is now up for 100K when he was going for 50 just a week prior. Now, when it comes to the bigger icons from launch that we've been following, Sergei Fedorov, there's actually one up for quite cheap at 100K, but for the rest, it's around 115 to right under 120,000 coins. The same thing goes for Teemu Selanne, right around 130,000 coins, so his value stayed exactly the same regardless of the new trade-in. His card is so good that you're not really seeing players trade them in for the minimum to make Eric Lindros, so that makes sense. So he has really settled in right around 130,000 coins, which is crazy because right after worldwide release, we're talking like 2 weeks after worldwide release, he was going for like 80,000 coins still. So a crazy big jump there for the tradable Teemu Selanne, and he has really settled in. Now, Paul Coffey, he was 230,000, but there's not very many up in the auction house right now. 250, so one of the best cards in the game. He was released at worldwide launch, and that really doesn't surprise me. You're not going to see a lot of these tradable up. There haven't been, and he has really held into that 250 and below, but right in that 200 to 250,000 coin range. Not surprising here. Best card in terms of defense in the game, and one of the best just period. And then lastly, Joe Sakic, who saw a crazy increase to his price, more than likely because he was so popular for that certain line combo. But it's not like Paul Coffey doesn't have options either. But nonetheless, he was going for about 270,000 coins. Now you're seeing about 220 to 230, and that's more than likely because that Joe Sakic line has kind of fallen in order of some of the new line combos that came out that do include Eric Lindros, for example. So that doesn't really surprise me there. So you're seeing roughly around 220,000, but still held his value, which is what I want to point out here. Now, this is the big one because the cost to make these was absolutely astronomical. So to make Eric Lindros, for example, you need an 86 overall icon. That's going to cost you 100,000 coins no matter what right there. But you also have a new set where you need to trade in 84 to 85 overall alumni as well on top of it to make one of the new 87 icons. Now, we didn't have to note these because they weren't used in any sets. 84s and 85s were not really used in sets to make these, so they kind of just fluctuate in value based on the specific card, but they're going for 60,000 coins now because you need 3 of them. It doesn't matter who they are. So, again, if you had a bunch of them in your collection for this new drop, you made out like a bandit here because, yeah, they're about 60,000 coins per after the Monday after the new content shakeup. Now, there is natural progression here because you need to make an icon regardless, and it is cheaper roughly to buy. So because of that, you can trade in 83 to 85 overall icons to make them. And these have actually gone down in price. They were 28,000 coins last week because these cards were specifically the ones you needed to make the expensive icons. So Coffey, Sakic, even Fedorov and Selanne were so expensive now because their tradable had gone up in price that it really raised the price of these. But because these ones aren't specifically needed for Lindros and MacKinnon, they've actually come down a little bit to about 24,000 coins. But you still need to use these to make an icon if you wanted to, and it's really not a cheaper route to go. If you find one for 100,000 in terms of the icon, it's just cheaper than this. Now, when it comes to making an 83 to 85, you can make one with a 81 to 82 overall set. These last week were going for 8,000 coins per, now up to 9,500. Again, these are kind of the barrier of entry to get up into the higher alumni to make some of the bigger icons. So 9,500 here. Now, Heroes also received a really big drop because we got the new Mike Gartner, who is one of the best cards in the game. And when it comes to the actual heroes pulled, it's the same thing we've seen all year. Last week, there was 22. Now there's only 25 on the auction house. And again, there isn't really... You see a lot of the Mike Gartners, but they're so expensive that no one's really buying them tradable because you can make them. But yeah, only 23 heroes up in the auction house total. And to make the new Mike Gartner, you need to trade in 2 of the 84 overall versions. And this is another example of a card exploding in price. So last week, you could pretty much grab any of the heroes for 60,000 coins. That included Naslin and even Shara for the most part. Now the bare minimum is 80,000 because you need 2 of them to make Mike Gartner. So right off the rip, no matter what, to get a hero card, it's going to cost you 80K just to grab one. Now, you also need 4 82 to 84 overall alumni, which is, again, why you see a little bit of an increase in that price. So just very expensive across the board for alumni. Now, you can also trade in 79 and 80 overall to make an 81 overall alumni. And these have shot way up in price. So they were 3,500 last week. But again, they're the barrier of entry for all the new alumni trade-ins. You're looking at 4,500 coins, so 1,000 more per for the cheapest alumni that you can start making these cards. So very expensive jump there. Now, we got a brand new event, the Faceoff Inside the NHL event. And this one was a little bit weird because it came out on a Tuesday, so it's actually been out for about a week now, as opposed to just the normal Friday release. And making one of these cards, because they jumped up to an 86 overall, it's now going to require 83 to 85 overall event items to make the Master Set players. And you're looking at about 40,000 coins per to make one of those event items if you just wanted to buy it on the auction house. You also need 2 83 to 85 overalls, which again is a jump up and an increase. Now, these jumped up a ton. We'll talk about that more in another content drop piece. But it looks like 83s at bare minimum are going for about 18,000 coins at the minimum for these cards. Again, very expensive. The barrier for entry for this event also jumped up to a 79 to 80, so 78s aren't used in this anymore. And you've seen a massive increase in price in this, as 79 to 80s are now jumping up to just under 3,000 coins. That was huge. You could get 79s for under 2K even just last week. So that is a massive, almost double the price for the barrier for entry to this event. When it comes to the Master Set player items for this event, very expensive. And that is more than likely because if you trade in all 4, you can get a Anze Kopitar, and that's the only way to get them. So if you're looking to just buy them, but you're looking at like 250,000 coins for any of them, it doesn't matter. Even though Byfield is extremely good, it doesn't really matter. They're all holding their value pretty well. There's only 7 total on the auction house. Now, the fantasy hockey event, that's done. You can't make them anymore. So in terms of just total cards, there's now 76 up, and that's because there was a major pack issue on, I believe it was Monday night right before the event ended, when people could pull them very easily. So anyone that spent money, you were able to just get the cards super easily. And there was none up for under 1 million coins, really. And now you're starting to see some of them fall back down in price. You see Jamie Benz around 550,000. Same with Jared Spurgeon, because those are 2 of the more or least popular players. James Van Riemsdyk, who is kind of the least favorite by a lot of players because he was just going to play on the 4th line, wasn't even in the lineup for the first 2 because of a family issue. He's now gone up a little bit because he actually scored against the Leafs. So there are some cards now that are under 1 million, which is nice. But a lot of that has to do with so many being pulled. You see a lot of Chris Letang's. He's hurt now, so the fluctuation there is pretty big. All right, now we have to talk about the big one. So Connor McDavid, he was fluctuating in price a little bit, and there were so many more that hit the market last Market Monday because everyone anticipated a transaction card. And I talked about this a lot. Transaction card would have been a card that you would have a pack. There'd be no way to build him. So I stated that I don't think Connor McDavid's price is going to drop all that much because he's going to be so hard to pull. So no one, even if you sold him, you're not going to just go buy the 86. They came out with a buildable Connor McDavid, which I did not anticipate. I don't know if anyone did. And his price, more than anyone's, absolutely exploded, and not in a good way if you were a Connor McDavid holder. So there's 24 on the market right now, and there was 21 last week, so it jumped up 3 at this time of this recording. However, his price was 300,000 coins. Now you can get him for about 130,000, which was crazy, is that on Saturday night, after the Friday drop of the new buildable Connor McDavid, he got down to 80,000 coins. I didn't sell mine because there was just no reason to panic sell in that case. And now, as you can see, after the dust is settled, his captain card doesn't help a lot of lineups, and because a lot of the specific good Pacific cards, there isn't a defenseman really that fits well in a lot of the common builds. It's very expensive to get Connor McDavid in your lineup as a captain card, activate the Pacific, if you have a lot of good players from the other events, because there's a lot in the Central and of the division. So we're going to talk about his captain card in just a little bit, but his price went from 300K down to 80 in 24 hours, back up to 130K. I have a feeling that this will continue to rise until a Pacific Division defense pairing comes out, more available that aren't super expensive like Al MacInnis. That's my guess here. And I'm very curious to see how it's going to play out. But it'll be interesting to come back to this. This was one of the crazier ones to take note of all year, because the panic by the entire community that had Connor McDavid was insane. He literally dropped down to 80,000 coins for about a day. It's crazy. Now, another thing to note, they came out with a Leon Draisaitl Spotlight card that you can earn. Almost impossible for the majority of the player base, but you could get him for free, which means tanks Leon Draisaitl's base card, because it was going for 55,000 coins. You can get him for like in the low 30s now. So again, kind of the basic thesis here is that if you ever get a card that's buildable for these big popular ones, it will tank the value no matter what. However, if it's a card that is released via the auction house or packs only, it really doesn't have an impact after that initial release. Things tend to balance out, and you really don't see a big influx. So a buildable card comes out, and it just blows up the price. Now, another very interesting one. MacKinnon did not get a card that came out that really should have impacted his value. What did happen was you saw a lot of people come out with the Gartner card. So Gartner, Lindros, and the new Connor McDavid that we'll touch on. And I think that's what's killed Nathan MacKinnon's value, because a lot of people were able to build Sakic. And once you had the buildable icons so far in this launch, then you would go after and you'd spend 300,000 coins or 200,000 coins on MacKinnon and McDavid. And that was kind of the progression early on in the game. Mike Gartner came out, and he's clearly the number one right-handed winger for almost everyone now that is really hardcore about the game, and you saw McKinnon's price just plummet. He was 220,000 coins. He's down for 120, and I really don't know how he rebounds, because again, this is a interesting case where this card has nothing that impacted Nathan MacKinnon specifically. He didn't get an MSP. He didn't get some crazy free card given out. It was just like Nathan MacKinnon, it's like the Toy Story meme where it's like, I'm done with you now because Mike Gartner came out. So even if it's not a buildable card, if it's a buildable card for that specific position, it can have an impact on the highest rated base items. And the reason why, like I said, that Connor McDavid's price tanked so much was the new captain set. So you have to trade in an 85 overall captain, which is what we've been using, like Miro Heiskanen, for example, on top of an 83 to 85 overall player item. Now, like I said, you can get 83 overalls for about 18,000 coins now. At the time of this release, when this card came out, you were looking at like 30, 40,000 coins for an 83. It was insane to get an 83 overall. So if there's ever something that I take away from this, it's that when there is a shiny new toy that everybody wants immediately, if you just wait, more than likely the prices will even out, because 83s to 85s, while they are more difficult to pull than the lower 80s and 70s even, but they are all in the pack pool. There are always, as more packs get opened throughout the release, there's going to be more cards that hit the market. And once someone gets McDavid, you're really not doing this over unless you chose a different one, for example. But very expensive at the initial drop of it on Friday and Saturday night. But it has come down quite a bit since then. Now, here's a big impact. We got the new 86 overall Tage Thompson, and the team of the week jumped up one overall, so to 86. And there was no star of the month, which I wasn't sure of, but that's why I was collecting like Slavkovsky and Marner, for example, just in case to see. And it had a massive impact on the auction house for sure. Now, when it comes to the 85 overall Slavkovsky, again, it wasn't used in a Star of the Month set, so that price didn't really change. Right around 50,000 coins if you want Slavkovsky. He does not have a line combo either, so it's pretty much just settled in at about 50,000 coins from start to finish. Now, Marner was going for 84,000, and his price has actually gone up to just under 100,000 coins, which is interesting because there isn't really a Vegas Golden Knight line combo at all. the Canadian portion of Mitch Marner's card does fit in some different combos, but very interesting to see that his price did go up. And we did get some other cards that can actually fit the Swedish portion of that very popular line combo with Pasternak, Sakic, and Pettersson, who was kind of the best one. There was no Petterssons on the auction house at all, and now he's going for about 150,000 coins. So it looks like once we get another option at the top end for those really popular line combos, that's what will start to drop drastically these prices. Now, the 82 overall team of the weeks, those are staying in roughly the same price at just around 10,000 coins. So no real surprise there, because the 82s can now be used in sets for some of the more popular content. I thought that these might crash because you need 83 overall team of the week items to make the new 86 Pettersson, the new 86 Tage Thompson. So it's really the other content, just 82 overalls in general, kind of propping this up. So there was no drastic drop off there. Now, because you needed 583s to make the Tage Thompson, 30,000 coins for an 83 overall team of the week item. So when it officially jumps up and there's a very good team of the week card, you'll see a massive increase in terms of the cost for that specific one. Like 83s, again, are going for about 18,000 per. The team of the week 83s are going for 28,000. So anytime there's a big team of the week card, I would suspect that if the next week's team of the week that's 86 overall is not a banger, like Tage Thompson is a fantastic card, one of the most popular in the game right now, and I'm very curious to see. I think these 83 overall prices will drop quite a bit. And then lastly, what we do is we take a look at the total auction house cards available. Massive decrease, almost 2,000 less than the prior week. We were at 17,371 last week. We're at 15,514 now. A lot of that has to do with everyone buying stuff up to trade in for the new icon, Lindros, Heroes, Gartner, the stuff required to make the new captains. So it just, what happens when a crazy new content drop comes out, just the market gets crushed and there's a lot less supply, but still a healthy amount in over 15,000. That's going to do it for this episode of Market Monday. I can't wait for next week's because we get to see the further fallout after just a crazy weekend in terms of prices. Thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.